Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Liverpool Squad Talk. My name is Ozzy, and I'm your host for this evening. During this episode, we take a deep dive into Liverpool's goalkeeping department, assessing each goalkeeper's performance, strengths, and weaknesses this season. And we'll also see who has a future at the club. I'll also present some potential targets that Liverpool could pursue in the summer. So let's begin with our number one, who, of course, is Alisson Becker. No arguments to say that he is the best goalkeeper in the world. That performance against PSG should be a reference of that. And for me, he's still playing to his best and he's still playing to his prime. A lot of Liverpool fans did present the question mark a few months ago where he probably wasn't producing, 9 out of 10 performances, and some questions his sort of capability as Liverpool's number one, and even earmarked as potentially on the decline. I certainly wasn't one of those fans, but it goes to show the benchmark that Alisson has set for himself, where he's such an elite goalkeeper, where even if he has a slight dip, we think he's off the rails, or he's not going to be the goalkeeper that we expect to see him on a week in, week out basis. But for me, he's still one of the best goalkeepers in the world, and he's playing at his prime. This is the kind of age where goalkeepers excel. So for me, it's not a player that I'd like to see moved on at all. At this stage, very, very unlikely for him to leave the club this summer. There were links last summer from Saudi Arabia, but I think it was more paper talk and fake noise more than anything else. In terms of this season, for Alisson, he's played 28 games, which seems like a very low number for a number one. But of course, he's had a couple of injuries this season. And in those 28 games, he's conceded 22 goals and has kept 12 clean sheets. Of course, Liverpool's defense has been fantastic this season, but nonetheless, you still have to give Alisson his flowers, his credit, where he has kept us in a lot of games where he's made some great saves. The only sort of downside to Alisson as a goalkeeper is that he is quite injury prone. He does pick up a few injuries here and there. So for Liverpool, we definitely need to have a top quality number two, which of course is currently not him, it's him, Kelleher. So for me, I'm sure a lot of us Liverpool fans will agree, probably the best number two in the league and maybe even Europe. That's how far I'm going to say it. Um, Kelleher's had another decent season this year. Very interesting goalkeeper where a lot of number twos, when they are asked to come in and play, they're quite cold because they've not been active or they've not been involved around the team. Kelleher, whenever called upon, performs at the highest level. But at the same time, I do feel for him. Last summer it was announced that we were signing Mamardashvili on a pre-contract agreement for this summer, and that must have been hard to take. Whether Kelleher informed the club that this was going to be his last season, and that led to Liverpool exploring the market to find his replacement, who knows? But I don't think that's what's happened. I remember hearing his comments when he was on international duty after we signed Mamardashvili, and he was quick to say he doesn't see himself being a number two very long and wants to challenge himself in the future to be a number one at club level. So I think it makes perfect sense for all parties to allow Kelleher to leave this season. Liverpool will gain a decent amount of money for a player who came through the ranks. I think we can easily obtain around 35 to 40 million pounds for Kelleher. In terms of his side, he gets a chance to play as a number one at a good level, and of course helps with his international prospects as well. He's been linked with the likes of Chelsea, Tottenham, Bournemouth, Brentford, Nottingham Forest, just to name a few over the months. So he's definitely got a lot of suitors, and should find a relatively good club that can help him continue to develop and hopefully, you know, aid his sort of desire to be a number one at club level. And from a Liverpool point of view, it already appears that we've found his replacement, and that player coming in this summer is Mamardashvili. But before we analyse the Georgian goalkeeper, Kelleher's stats for this season have been good. He's played 18 games, conceded 17, and has kept 8 clean sheets. So not a bad stat for our keeper there. Now, let's go on and discuss Mamardashvili. Now, this transfer certainly surprised and raised a few eyebrows last season. Firstly, Liverpool don't normally future-proof a position by signing a player for next season, but I think this was a smart deal from the club. Mamardashvili had a fantastic campaign for Georgia in the Euros last year and was one of the standout goalkeepers in the tournament. So his popularity increased and his stock was expected to rise. But Liverpool swooped in and got a deal done worth around £25 million, which, let's be honest, is peanuts in this day and age. Now, the big question is, how's he been doing on loan at Valencia? Well, he's had a bit of a mixed season, if I'm being honest. In terms of stats, he's played 24 games, conceded 40, and has only kept 5 clean sheets. And to put this into perspective, Valencia aren't having the best of seasons. They're currently 16th in La Liga, only 1 point above the relegation zone. So their league status is still up in the air. Now, we know he's a Liverpool player, but is it worth doing what Chelsea did with Courtois all those years ago, where they kept on sending him out loan to Atletico? And if we did that with Mamardashvili, that'll allow him to play regular football and continue his development at a high level. It's definitely an option. It can't be ruled out. But when you assess the options, if Keller was willing to stay for another year, for example, I think that would be a option that I would consider. But at the same time, I don't think that'll happen. Kelleher's Liverpool contract expires next summer in 2026. So unless he extends that contract, which is very doubtful, uh, this would be the summer to cash in on him. So I think Mamardashvili is expected to come this summer and challenge Allison for that number 1 jersey. Now, there's one player that has kind of gone under the radar, and that is our third choice goalkeeper in Vyacheslav Yaros. Now, his contract is expiring this summer, but there's been no noise with regards to his future or a potential contract extension. So the big question is, do we extend his contract so he remains as our third choice keeper, or are we going to go into the market to sign another goalkeeper? Now, when signing a goalkeeper, it's always a tricky recruitment to do, because if they're going to come in as a number 1, it's very easy to sell that project. Signing a number 2 is always a tricky task, because you have to convince that goalkeeper that they will be challenging, or they do have, a genuine chance to be number 1, or they will be getting a lot of game time in the season. But signing a number 3 seems a bit of a difficult task. How do you sell a project to someone? Well, there's 3 sort of types of profiles I think Liverpool can target. They can go for an experienced goalkeeper to provide, you know, leadership within the squad. They can go for a young and up and coming goalkeeper who can learn the ropes with the number 1 and number 2, or you can promote internally. So give one of the youth players within our ranks the chance to stake a claim within first team football. So let's have a look at some potential options to see if we're going to sign a third choice goalkeeper, and let's just see if we're able to identify these type of profiles, because it's not an easy one to get on board, to be honest with you. Now, in terms of the experience options, of course, those names will be familiar to all of us. None of these players have been linked to Liverpool, but it's just players that I thought could be interesting options for the club. So for the first player, we all know him, Chesney, the former Arsenal player, of course, went over to Juventus, currently at Barcelona right now. His contract expires this summer, so he will be available as a free agent. And he's not had a bad season for Barcelona, to be fair. Not first choice, but has been playing as a number two and then has been partly involved in first team action. He's played 16 games, 16 clean sheets, sorry, 16 goals conceded and 8 clean sheets. So not bad stat there from the Polish goalkeeper. Another interesting thing, if we were to go in for Szczesny, is that I think he will qualify as a homegrown player because he was signed as a youth player for Arsenal and he spent around 3 years within the ranks before he made his professional debut. So that could be a big factor in signing the goalkeeper. And in terms of his age, he's 34 years old, so not very old in terms of the goalkeeping world. So it could be a player where I feel like his experience could be a good influence within the goalkeeping department, but also the team he's played, at different clubs at a very high level. So that could be a very, very interesting profile. He hasn't confirmed his next step. It's still to be revealed if he's going to extend his contract with Barcelona or if he's going to move on and pursue a different club after the season. So very interesting to see what he does this summer. Now, in terms of the second goalkeeper, you've got Hugo Lloris. Now, of course, we know him as the former Tottenham goalkeeper. He moved over to the US of A and playing for LAFC in the MLS. So he's not playing a lot of games. Of course, their season, starts and ends differently to how we play in Europe. But so far, he's made 7 appearances, conceded 5 goals, but he has kept 4 clean sheets. So his contractual situation when he signed for 1 year, but he does have the option to extend, but it hasn't been confirmed if he is going to do so. So for me, he would bring a lot of experience, of course, being part of the France squad where he's won the Euros and the World Cup. Of course, didn't win anything at Tottenham, but has Premier League experience, which is very important at the same time. In terms of his age, he's 38 years old, so yes, a bit on the sort of over the end, but a player that I feel like could be very vital in terms of his leadership skills and his experience. He's been captain wherever he's been at club and international level. So he could be a very, very interesting profile for us to look at. And the other option could be Lucas Fabianski. So the current goalkeeper at West Ham, not number one, it's Areola predominantly, but Fabianski has played quite a few games this season. He's played 16 games in all comps, conceded 27 goals, and has only kept 4 clean sheets. But of course, you have to take into account which team he plays for. So he's available on a free transfer. And of course, as I mentioned, so is Szczesny and so is Hugo Lloris. So that's why I presented these three goalkeepers because they are players that have Premier League experience. They are an age where they might not be first choice at certain clubs, so they could come in as third choice. Seems a bit disrespectful, but they could come in to play that role if required. So for me, I think these three would be interesting options. Feel free to drop a comment. Let me know what you guys think. I'm sure there's probably other options out there, but I think to recruit third choice goalkeeper, the less money you spend, the better. We're a local football club. We don't spend a lot of money when it comes to transfers. So in this sort of situation, looking at the sort of the free agents market might be the way to go. But these are just options. So let's see, what Liverpool do with regards to that third choice goalkeeper. Another profile that we could look at is young and upcoming goalkeepers. So here are a few goalkeepers that have been raising their profile or have been making waves this summer, or should I say this season, more or less. So Dennis Seaman, he is making a lot of noise in Germany right now, playing for Stuttgart too, so in the third tier of German football. In terms of his stats this season, he's managed to play 28 games. He's conceded 50 goals, which is not a great stat there, and he's only kept 3 clean sheets. But he is a goalkeeper that has been very highly regarded, and a lot of expecting him to play for Stuttgart, but also potentially, go on to do bigger and better things, playing for a more established team in the Bundesliga, and they see him as a future goalkeeper for the German national team. So, he could be an interesting profile. He's only 19 years of age, so that's the sort of profile, yeah, where you bring him on and he can learn the ropes from Alisson and Mamardashvili as well. And then, when the time comes, maybe, if Alisson's ready to move on, which, it could happen in the next 2, 3 years, you've got Dennis Seaman and you've got Mamardashvili fighting for that number one spot. So that could be a very interesting profile to recruit. Now, in terms of the second option, I think in terms of Dennis Seaman, I believe he signed the contract extension last year. So if we were to sign him, he wouldn't command a crazy transfer fee, but it'd be a lot more than what would have been expected last year if he made an approach. But the second goalkeeper is Jaden Owusu-Aduro. Now he is a goalkeeper that plays for AZ Alkmaar. Um, he was playing for the under 21. He's been promoted to the main team right now in the Eredivisie, and he's been their first choice. So crazy to think that I'm identifying a goalkeeper that's first choice at the Eredivisie, and possibly seeing him as a number three. But with Mamardashvili not 100%, convincing everyone right now, because a lot of fans are like, maybe he should go out on loan again. Maybe if we can bring in a young goalkeeper to challenge Alisson, would be the route to go. But in terms of his stats this season, he's played 37, made 37 appearances, 49 goals conceded, and has kept 10 clean sheets. So, very young goalkeeper, only 20 years of age, first real sort of professional season for him. A good goalkeeper in terms of what I've seen. Very briefly, I haven't seen much of him, but an interesting profile. Is it a realistic one? I'm not too sure. But for a goalkeeper that's playing first year is at Alkmaar, you expect him to stay there. But he has been linked with a move to the Premier League. I think he was linked with Wolves at one point. So, there is interest from the Premier League. But if he was to join a team like Wolves, you'd expect him to be first or second choice, maybe even first choice, to be fair. But that's a profile that, Liverpool could look into this summer. And the other option is James Beadle. So he is a goalkeeper that is owned by Brighton. So difficult team to negotiate with, but he's currently on loan at Sheffield Wednesday for a second time, I believe. So he's an up and coming goalkeeper. He's just been selected for the England under 21 team as well. So in terms of his stats this season, 38 games played, 59 goals conceded, and only 9 clean sheets. So if we were to sign him, he'd cost a few bob as well because it's Brighton and they're very strong negotiators when it comes to dealing with big clubs like Liverpool. But I don't know if this is a realistic option. But in terms of profile, it could be something that Liverpool look into. Um, but yeah, feel free to drop a comment. Let me know what you think of these targets. Are they realistic or are they out of bounds? Feel free to let me know. Or Liverpool can go with the first profile, and that is promote our youth and within our own ranks. So you've got Harvey Davis, who I forgot to mention earlier on. He's actually on his last couple of months of his contract. His contract expires in June, so no talks in terms of him receiving a contract extension. I don't think Yaros and Davis would get extended. It would be one or the other, or maybe none of them. So if that's the case, what do Liverpool do with that third option? Do they go for the experienced head, as I mentioned earlier on? Do they buy a young and up and coming goalkeeper from Europe or across the world? Or do they promote internally? So do they give someone like a Reece Truman or Oscar Kelly the chance to state that claim? Not too sure, to be honest with you. I haven't seen a lot of Reece Truman and Oscar Kelly, so it's very, very difficult to suggest that they are definitely going to be third choice. In terms of Reece Truman, he's barely played this season, and you've got Oscar Kelly, who's made a few appearances, three in total, 2 goals conceded, and 1 clean sheet. So, it's going to be very interesting to see what Liverpool do. I don't think it's a sort of done deal conclusion in terms of the goalkeeper section. Uh, Now, my verdict, this is what I would do. Of course, Allison stays as number one for sure. We sell Kelleher and gain that 35 between 40 million pounds in transfer fee. Now, you'd assume that that money goes into the transfer kitty for signings this summer, but maybe that fund is used for the remainder of Mamardashvili's deal, which is 25 million pounds. But as we pay in installments, that is how transfers are done nowadays. Maybe that transfer fee will be used for that. Who knows? Because it's never quite clear in terms of how the money is managed. But regardless, we'll get a good amount of money for Kelleher. I'll actually insert a buyback clause if we were to sell him permanently, because I do feel like, if a couple of years' time Mamardashvili doesn't work out, go and re-sign Kelleher. Because I feel like Kelleher, for me, knows how the club operates. He's shown that he's more than worthy of playing for Liverpool Football Club. Unfortunately, we've got the number one goalkeeper in the world in Alisson, and it's very hard to to nudge him from his perk, unfortunately. Um, so for me, Alisson number one, Mamardashvili number two. I would personally not explore the market. I wouldn't go for an experienced head or try to sign a young up and coming goalkeeper or promote from the youth because I don't know if the goalkeepers are to a sufficient quality. I would just give Yaros a contract extension and maybe something we analyze maybe in a year or two and see what needs to be done. Or maybe we'll have another young up and coming goalkeeper that comes through and they're given the chance to be a third choice. But I would say give Yaros a 2 or 3 year contract extension. If it doesn't work out in the next year or so, we could definitely move him on, and I'm sure he'll generate some interest across Europe. So yeah, so that's my verdict. So that is the analysis of our goalkeeping department, and that is also the end of the show. So thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Now, as I'm doing this as a series right now, the second episode will take place tomorrow at 11 p.m. as I will be analyzing the defenders. So it's going to be centre backs, left backs, right backs. So there's going to be a bigger discussion, a lot of players to go through, a lot of players to analyze. Of course, we'll discuss the likes of Van Dijk and Trent possibly leaving, who could be their replacements as well. So lots of talking points with regards to that. So please make sure to tune in for that tomorrow. And that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care, stay safe, and I hope to see you all very, very soon. Goodbye.